Good afternoon. The health and well-being of our people of Bermuda remains a priority for this government. In this year's throne speech, we have outlined some key initiatives that will provide more significant support for our citizens. With modern technology, we will better deliver expert care to Bermuda. With that in mind, the professional registration process for all health professionals will be streamlined as the Bermuda Health Council transfers its systems to a blockchain-enabled online platform. The current processes require documents to be scanned into third-party platforms and sometimes printed so that board members can meet to review these paper files. This new platform will allow health professionals to store the documents required for registration in a secure electronic or digital wallet. The wallet will store things such as the health professional's credentials, resumes, continuing education information, work history, etc., and all of this will be controlled by the health professional. The health professional will be able to submit these items electronically onto the registration platform and pay for the registration either through a bank account or through cryptocurrency. This means that there will be no more need for paper documents and no more recertifying documents that were submitted previously. This will reduce the repeated and annual retrieval of registration documents and allow for the statutory boards to meet virtually and view the verified electronic documents online. In addition, the Health Council will enhance its website and create a consolidated listing of healthcare professionals and businesses with their own online profiles. The profiles will allow businesses to update their service offerings and provide online verification of credentials. Businesses will also be able to make online payments for regulated equipment and licenses. And for consumers, the profiles will facilitate better transparency regarding services and credentials. Also, with the added mapping functions, consumers will be able to quickly find services that meet their needs closest to their homes. The health professionals and business registration platform will give the Health Council the ability to extract information, to develop reports that can be used for policy making, and to complete a comprehensive health workforce strategy planning. Universal health coverage continues to be a key objective for the ministry and for Bermuda, and we recognize that many aspects of healthcare reform will take time to implement. However, during this session, legislation will be advanced to support data collection as a necessary first step for introducing controls around medical co-payments required for those in our population that are most vulnerable. The intention is to collect the data necessary to make informed decisions around what steps can be taken to assist the most vulnerable in our community. The UHC journey will take some time, but it should be possible to assist those most in need in some way before the full scheme of UHC is rolled out. Also, as stated in the throne speech, Bermuda's children present the most precious opportunity for the continued success of our homeland. Every child's first 1,000 days of life, including the mother's pregnancy up to the second birthday, is one of the most critical, informative, and vulnerable periods for mental health and well-being. It is a period of intensive brain development, first relationships, psyche information as well. Experiences during this critical period impact the lifelong trajectory of health and wellness, setting the foundation of a person's cognitive, emotional, and physical development. The government will embark on the first 1,000 Days project to optimize this critical period of life for all families. Support for our future children is support for our future Bermuda. But babies cannot speak for themselves during this period of critical development, so we will work with parents, caregivers, families, and educators to give every child the best start in life. Last year's introduction of medical benefits, improving access to pre and antenatal care for women, regardless of insurance coverage, and will reduce financial stress for expecting mothers and, by extension, the stress to the developing child. This project builds on that, and that is commitment to a wellness model of care versus the illness model, which is key to fostering resilience for families. It involves mapping all of the touch points of the first 1,000 days, starting with pregnancy. We will map and document the strengths in our programs and identify the gaps in services, disparities, and inequities with the aim of making recommendations for improving service integration, systems, policies, and collaboration to achieve better outcomes. What we put in place will depend on what we start with, so we will begin with this mapping exercise. The first 1,000 days is an acknowledged importance worldwide. It is part of the World Health Organization's global strategy for women, children, and adolescents health, and the UNICEF Baby Friendly Initiative. Investing in the start of life economically, socially, and psychologically is vital to a prosperous society. During the upcoming session, the government will also introduce pesticide safety regulations under the Pesticide Safety Act 2009 to reduce cancer risk. Provisions in this act enable oversight of all pesticides to prevent contamination of the environment, food, and water while contributing to efficiently in agriculture and protecting the public and pesticide applications from cancer risk. The primary objective is to bring the act into full force so that human health and the environment are protected through improved management of the risk associated with pesticides. Standards of pesticide use are improved and pesticide application practices are made safer and more efficient and effective to all settings, and all commercial pesticide application methods are considered and adequately regulated, including but not limited to backpack, boom spray, basal cut stem treatment, wick wand methods, and novel pesticide application methods such as aerial spraying by drones. Regulation to be made under this act will do the following: create a process to designate categories of pesticides, general, restricted, and prohibited, and communicate to the public which pesticides have been so designated. Prescribe conditions for applying pesticides, including in the environment and on produce to be offered for sale, marketed as pesticide-free or friendly. Recognize approved training schemes for pesticide applicators. Create a licensing system for regulating commercial and high-risk application of pesticides. Create standards for the transport, handling, storage, and disposal of pesticides, as well as establish record-keeping requirements for importation, sale, use, transport, handling, storage, and disposal of pesticides, and prescribe penalties for applying pesticides commercially without a license and/or outside of the approved conditions of pesticide importation. In the past year, of necessity, the Ministry of Health's focus has continued to be on COVID-19 and our pandemic response. In recent weeks and months, our focus has shifted to our new normal. While the pandemic is not yet over, our public health emergency is drawing to a close. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank those very dedicated health care workers and those who were on the front line, and worked tirelessly to help us to manage the pandemic. Thanks to their efforts, we are definitely in a much better space now. We've had a few tough years and we've come a long way. However, I'm optimistic that our initiatives in the next legislative session will improve health outcomes as we all work together collectively towards a healthy people and healthy communities. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the media and members of the public. Today, I am pleased to provide the details and critical elements of the Ministry of Transport's throne speech initiatives announced last Friday, February the 4th. Before doing so, I would like to highlight some of the successes of the Ministry of Transport, particularly the updates on the initiatives from the prior throne speech of 2021. In 2021, during the height of the pandemic, Bermuda was successful with its home porting initiative, the Viking Cruise Line, regular calls from Crystal Cruises and Norwegian Cruise Line, and one visit from The World, which brought 36 calls and 14,036 visitors to our shores. This activity created an economic impact of $11.4 million. This year, we are estimating to end the season with an estimate of and 66 cruise ship calls, with approximately 395,000 passengers, equating to an estimate of $156.1 million in economic activity. In 2023, Bermuda is looking forward to hosting 200 calls, or a 20% increase over this year, 2022. This is a testament to the relationship that have been built with the cruise line, inclusive of the newly implemented year-round cruise calls to Bermuda. The cruise calls will naturally create more activity at their designated landing ports. These are certainly successes that will assist the country in its economic recovery. Coinciding with the success of the cruise industry, the Ministry of Transport Air Service Development Strategy continues to position Bermuda for transformational change in the commercial aviation industry to be ready for uncertainty and to aid economic recovery. Consultation has been held with the various stakeholders to ensure a comprehensive and robust approach is considered. Data has been collected from international aviation authorities, such as International Air Transportation Association, we better know it as IATA, and International Civil Aviation Organization, and used to provide forecasts post-COVID recovery. The success of the SATA Azores Flights Initiative this summer provided a template that can work within the strategy. This direct route increased opportunities for inbound tourism and for Bermuda residents to travel to the Azores and connect to 8 other islands, Europe and beyond, and reunite with family and friends. Every viable airline partner and option is being considered, and continuous consultation is currently taking place. The Boston route is a primary priority and forms part of the discussion. The Ministry of Transport remains vigilant to source a sustainable solution. The Ministry of Transport's kindness to provide the public with access and service to evolving technology remains at the forefront. Currently, persons traveling by public transportation are only able to pay fares with cash, tokens, paper tickets, and passes. Our aim is to amend existing legislation to make provision to expand payment options for persons traveling on public transportation, buses, and ferries. In addition to the current forms of payment, persons will be able to pay the fare by electronic ticketing. An example is digital mobile ticketing as a phone app and a wristband service. The ministry is working on the legislation changes to make the digital fare options available to the public. I will now highlight the plans for the Ministry of Transport will endeavor to facilitate for the initiatives outlined in 2022 throne speech. The harmonization and modernization of public service vehicles are key factors to our visitor experience and ultimately our tourism industry. As the Ministry of Transport is a vital partner to the Ministry of Tourism, the primary focus of the work is to ensure improved service, customer and driver safety, and consumer protection. Public service vehicles are a critical component of the passenger transport mix in Bermuda. They allow customers to go from their chosen pickup point directly to their destination at their preferred time. The evolving shifts in demographics, technology, and social attitudes are changes people's expectation of public service vehicles and how they seek and use these services. The ministry intends to work with all the stakeholders to develop a system with a collaborative and transparent approach. The process of consultation has begun, and feedback is being received, which will allow a collective methodology on how we move forward. The 3 critical pillars that the stakeholders agree is that fairness, equity, and enforcement are all fundamental to move into this next phase of public service vehicles. The ministry will consider the feedback received and continue to ensure the sector is kept abreast of the developments. During this legislative year, the ministry will review current public service vehicle legislation, policies and procedures to ensure that they are relevant, consistent, and practical, and helps protect stakeholders and users alike. The Ministry of Transport will also embark on a national electric vehicle policy and strategy for Bermuda, which will set out a plan to phase out the sale and importation of internal combustion engine vehicles by 2035. Transportation is a primary contributor of greenhouse gases around the world, and reducing or eliminating the emissions from transport will not only reduce Bermuda's contribution to climate change, but improve local air quality and reduce Bermuda's dependence on foreign oil. Bermuda has already experienced success this summer from the launch of operation of first 30 electric buses. Buses have been in operation for over 6 months and have saved the Department of Public Transportation an estimate $50,000 in fuel costs alone. These savings do not include maintenance costs, which are expected to be nearly half those of diesel buses. Early experience in the maintenance shop indicates that the required services are simple and quick to complete. Additionally, these buses have led to significant energy and emission savings over the summer. About 120,000 liters of diesel fuel were avoided through August, equivalent to the fuel burn of a typical 8-hour transatlantic flight. The Ministry introduction to National Electric Vehicle Policy can only multiply the benefits experienced this summer with electric buses alone. As the global vehicle market moves towards electric vehicles, it will become increasingly important for Bermuda to prepare for this transaction. Bermuda has already started the electric vehicle transition with fully electric rental car fleets, select private vehicles, and the recent introduction of electric bus. Being less than 25 miles long and 2 miles at its widest point, the island is prime candidate for EVs without the need for long-range vehicles or frequent charging. However, most of the nearly 20,000 licensed private vehicles are still internal combustion engine vehicles. The slow pace of adoption can be attributed in part to the limited availability of EV models on the island. To this end, the ministry will review size of EVs so that more models are made available. The Ministry of Transport views the advancement of this policy as a significant development for Bermuda that will create a multitude of benefits for the environment and the people of Bermuda. The Project Ride program has developed to provide our young riders with tools to establish safe riding habits. The program has transformed and expanded over many years to ensure the new and young riders are provided with structured training sessions to give the riders a good foundation to ride on our roads safely and securely. In 2010, the Project Ride program became a mandatory component for teenagers wishing to acquire a license to ride an auxiliary bike. Also at that time, the name of the driving license became the Bermuda Youth License, which contained various conditions. The program processes between 400 and 600 persons per year. However, the practical skill attained by the graduates have constantly been challenged due to the absence of on-road training. The first time a Bermuda Youth License holder interacts with actual traffic is after they have obtained the license. This is too late. To improve on this practice, regulations will be drafted for auxiliary bicycles to allow for creating a learner's permit. This permit will only be issued after the student successfully passes the theory exam and reaches the age of 16 years. The permit can then be used for instruction and final riding exams on public roads. The new procedure aligns with acquiring a license in other categories, and Bermuda youth license holders will be better prepared to encounter the public roads, which will ultimately result in safe streets for Bermuda. The commitment of the ministry is steadfast to the people of Bermuda. We are dedicated to working with our partners and stakeholders to move Bermuda forward diligently and progressively. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Furbert. We will now take questions from the media. I want to start with Jasmine from Blue Broadcasting.
Hi, Good morning, Minister. I guess since transport, if you're still
Sure.
standing there, we can
Sure.
start with you. Thank you for your presentation. A couple questions that came to mind regarding the Boston route to Bermuda. So that's going to be suspended until the spring. Has the government explored any other airlines that might be willing to take that that route?
I will tell you this. My first priority is airlines. My second priority is airlines. My third priority is airlines. And so what we've done is look to see exactly where we are. We've had some challenges. There was one particular airline that was supposed to be starting up around this time. Unfortunately, is not able to do it at this time. It's a private industry, and for them to make any decisions be up to them for you to ask. But we need more airlines on the island. And so I will be meeting with the Hotel Association on, I think, on Thursday. I've met with the Airport Authority Group, met with other interested parties regarding airlines. We need to get people in line. The question is, can we get it back in the next 2 weeks? Impossible. The one just can pop up because I appeared on the radar. But our goal is to have discussions with the airlines, JetBlue, Delta, and all those who are corner partners, and also individuals who are outside of the normal group.
Thanks. The opposition yesterday accused the government of using this Bermuda-based airline that's, due to be issued a certificate soon, as a ploy. What did you make of that?
The opposition has the right to say what they want. But we know that we're focused on getting things done. I don't think that was a ploy. That was intent of what the airlines were supposed to be doing. Unfortunately, as all business startup and individual, it wasn't the right time for them to move ahead with it.
Sure. So as we know, Coral Jet is currently in the process of taking the steps to be issued a certification to operate an airline here. What are your thoughts on this delay? It wasn't expected to be online a bit sooner.
That's a particular airline I'm talking about. The Coral Jet, like I said, is a private company, and the board or whoever the individuals are, we're not ready at this particular time to move ahead. I'm sure if they were, they would have done it. We will welcome them to move ahead tomorrow. We will also have a discussion with a company called Bermuda Air. They're in the island this week. Will they be ready for this particular winter? We're having discussions. We'll see how it goes.
Okay. Do airlines ever give a reason why they're not able to service to Bermuda?
I will be personally speaking with them within the next week or so and get some more feedback from them.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to touch on the electric fleet.
Mm-hmm.
You intend to phase the diesel buses out within 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I wondered how soon could you see this solar charging station be fully operational to kind of handle the number of buses that you hope to transition?
We have some in place right now. Cabinet has approved for more to take place. And so because over a 10-year period, we're going to be financing that over that period of time. I think I have approval right now for additional X amount. I just can't remember the number.
Sure. Thank you. And looking at sort of driving behaviors, recently the police released some statistics on the number of impaired drivers, those driving without a license, etc. Because the learner's permit is only targeting young people who are just getting started out on the roads, I wondered if there was any concrete plans in addressing the poor behaviors that adults are doing right now.
That's an interesting question. The question that comes down to personal responsibility. We have to get some more messaging out there in regards to behavior. Road Safety Council is definitely working on that behalf. I tell everybody when I was much younger, our road racing and was the thing of the day. You just can't race like you used to. But there is some problem challenges that we have, and we got to find a way to try and improve that behavior. This is one step to ensure that our young people are better equipped to get on the road when it comes to Project Ryan.
Sure. Going to modernizing the taxi industry, I wondered if you had had a chance, given that you're newly in the position, to kind of get a grasp on what some of the issues are that they're facing.
Yeah. I didn't say actually modernize the taxi industry. We're talking about vehicles, the policy overall. That includes taxi, mini buses, limousines. That's the whole aspect of that group. There's no doubt we have challenges, particularly during the summer season. We have increased tremendously the amount, and thanks to the good work of Stacey Evans and the team at TCD in regards to getting more cruise lines up there. With volume of people comes challenges with moving people. The government has the buses, and we have now, I think we have about 175 mini buses. When I was, despite what the organization said, I was in my third time in this rodeo. I've been twice. In 1994, 95, I believe the mini bus was around about 2. In fact, I'm not sure if they had mini buses. We used to have buses coming out of the airport, go airport to the hotel back to the airport. So over the years, we've got these mini buses. So we've now to find out, well, here are the challenges, what are the challenges, and how can we improve on it? So we're having discussions with the taxi drivers, we're having discussions with the mini buses, we're having discussion with everyone that's involved in that. How do we make things better? And we hopefully will find a way to make a plan that everyone can at least agree in principle.
Sure. Just one question about the ferry route in St. George's. That seems to be a pretty popular route. Do you anticipate that returning next season?
Next one.
Scheduled?
Next.
The orange route from St. George's to Dockyard to service
Yeah,
cruise
so
ships?
here's part of the, it's not a challenge, but when because of when the ship's in, there's, we don't go back and forward because of the demand. But with the, if a cruise line is overnighting, we have made a commitment that we will have a ferry going back and forward. But when they're coming in and leaving around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm an avid cruiser myself. I normally will stay closer to port because I'm going to make sure I catch catch the cruise line. So that's the policy of the ministry, is that overnight we'll do our best to have a cruise down there. Norwegian Cruise Line provides, I think that's correct, provides their own ferry. It's just a matter of fact of how do we work with them to create capacity to move people around.
Thank you. I'll swap over to Health Ministry if that's okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Good afternoon, Minister Wilson.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for your presentation earlier today. I wanted to start with, the Bermuda Hospitals Board, if that's all right. Just one question that's quite relevant at the time. Are you kind of happy with the way that the Pearl system is being implemented, given that there are significant patient delays experienced over the last week or so?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't necessarily qualify that as being significant patient delays. It was always acknowledged that the implementation of the Pearl system may require certain training and so forth, where that the wait time may be a little bit extended. However, the hospital rightfully indicated that the significance of those delays, unfortunately, is not necessarily accurate. We've had an opportunity to review the Pearl system. It's a tremendous system. It is going to allow efficiencies of scale for the Bermuda Hospital Board, as well as all of us in Bermuda, because at one point or another we will have to go through the hospital. And the fact that we are moving from a paper-based medical record system to an electronic medical record system is tremendous. So the endeavor on behalf of the Bermuda Hospitals Board with respect to the implementation of Pearl, and all the staff that have spent hours and hours of manpower to train themselves up to be part of that program, I think needs to be commended, and it will certainly provide efficiencies of scale. Anytime we use technology, we're going to have efficiencies of scale. So yes, there may have been a few teething pains in the initial stages, which was all anticipated because of the fact that you're transferring from a hugely paper-based system to an electronic system. But I think that in time, once the kinks have been worked out, we will all be able to stand in accord with the tremendous successes of the Pearl system.
Sure. Would it have been perhaps more efficient to roll out the system like by department rather than all at once, or Is there a reason why it's been such a big overhaul in just a short amount of time?
I would actually invite you to take that to the hospital. Those are questions that should be better posed to be answered by the Bermuda Hospitals Board.
Okay, thank you. Looking at the sugar tax, revenues generated about 5.4 million at the end of 2020. Do you have on hand recent figures and to show how specifically it's being spent on health initiatives?
I don't, if you're saying it's 5.4%, I mean $5.4 million, then I'll have to take that because I don't have those figures in front of me. However, as we've said previously, the reality is that with respect to the budget that is received by the Ministry of Health, which does involve preventative care, et cetera, then the monies have been allocated towards the budget that we receive from the Ministry of Health. So all of us have budgets. As the former finance minister indicated almost 2 years ago in the House, that the monies from the sugar tax did go straight into the consolidated fund, which is then disseminated to every ministry respectively.
Sure, thank you. I guess some people might be wondering, with, sugar being so available in pharmacies, gas stations, and hospitals, your thoughts on that in terms of wanting to sort of combat non-communicable diseases.
The position with respect to the Ministry of Health as it relates to sugar and the consumption of those goes back to when we actually implemented the policy surrounding sugar tax. The World Health Organization has always been advocating for the fact that financial disincentives help to sway the population's usage of sugary soft drinks and the consumption thereof. In fact, the most recent omnibus survey that was done, I want to say about 3 or 4 years ago, I don't have the data in front of me, showed that there has been a reduction in the consumption of sugary drinks by adults in Bermuda since the implementation of the sugar tax. Regrettably, we are living in a society that the extent of non-communicable diseases is ever prevalent. 3/4 of our adult population are either overweight or obese, largely as a result of unhealthy lifestyles, which also include poor dietary choices.
Thank you. I have a lot of topics I wanted to touch on, but I'll just jump ahead to the end of COVID restrictions at the end of the month. We're still experiencing deaths. However, vaccines are being rolled out, as we know. What's the uptake been like since the new boosters were made available?
I don't have that number in front of me. However, you can look at the Bermuda Health Council's website where people are encouraged to register to get the new vaccine, the booster, as well as if you've never been immunized. There are certain doctor's offices that are providing that, pediatricians, as well as a number of pharmacists that are also providing that. So we would certainly encourage everyone to avail themselves of protecting themselves and the community by getting either the first and second and third doses, or alternatively the new booster that is guarded against the BA4 and BA5 variant.
Thank you. The first 1,000 days policy that was talked about in the throne speech. In terms of optimizing, you said the care that children are receiving before their second birthday, what does that entail besides, I think you mentioned medical benefits that might be available?
No, the medical benefits I was speaking to, this is actually almost an extension of what was completed 2 years ago when we extended the medical benefits of maternity benefits to women that were either uninsured or uninsured, principally because we recognize it's incredibly important for a woman during the period of her caring of a child to be able to be afforded with all of the proper medical treatment that's required so that she has a healthy lifestyle, a healthy start in life as well as her child. So a continuation of that is the first 1,000 days, and the World Health Organization has indicated that that's critical for us to be able to identify and use as a set as a priority, ensuring that we have the proper programs and policies in place. And so what we're going to be doing is effectively a pathway, and we're going to map what that first 1,000 days should include. Should it include your vaccinations, prenatal checkups, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll map that and see during the course of that whether or not there's any gaps in the system, whether or not there's any inequalities in the system that need to be identified to ensure that the mother and their child in particular have a good start at that first 1,000 days of life.
Had that data existed previous to this initiative?
Part of that data does exist. However, regrettably, we don't have all of the data. And one of the things that you would notice in the throne speech is legislation that will be required for the collection of data so that we can use that data information to set policies as well as other programs that can be based on data-driven results. So part of the throne speech initiatives will include the provision for legislative amendments to require data to be provided to the Health Council so that we can do those things that I spoke about.
And one last question. The throne speech mentions the introduction of controls around medical co-payments required from vulnerable people. Is this something you're looking to change so that they earn, so what they earn or isn't earned if unemployed is taken into consideration when they make a co-payment?
What everybody would be aware of is with respect to the universal health coverage, what we are seeking to do is ensure that persons that are underinsured or uninsured have access to medical treatment, have access to the treatment that they require, and have access to the treatment that is needed in the most cost-effective mechanism. Regrettably, many of the individuals that are underinsured or uninsured, the vulnerable population that we're speaking about, do not seek medical treatment because of the co-pays. Now, in the first instance, we have to recognize that co-pays, depending the amount that a person pays with respect to their co-pay, there's a number of provisions. It depends on the nature of their insurance as well as their insurance provider. However, in individuals, the vulnerable population that I just spoke about, if they're not going to the doctor because of a copay, we need to look into that. And one of the ways that we will do that and address that is look at the data to see the circumstances in which these individuals are or are not going into facilitating doctor's appointments and the like because of the copay. But again, it's really critical that we recognize that when we look at the data and look to address that, because the universal health coverage ultimately is going to take several years for us to do, but we can look at certain things that can be done now, such as looking at the data to make informed decisions of policy and the like concerning controlled copays for the vulnerable population in our society.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine. Jonathan?
Afternoon, Minister, and
Good
thanks.
afternoon, Jonathan.
I guess I'll start. I sort of sat up hearing the part about the pesticide regulation. I was hoping you could expand on that a bit. What kinds of products are we looking at with that? I suppose things like the Roundup that we constantly hear about, does that fall under pesticide?
Let me explain, and you're correct. Something like Roundup is probably one of the ones that we're all more familiar with. But currently, the existing system has two government ministries that are enforcing the provisions under separate pieces of legislation. One is the Agriculture Act of 1930, which is operationalized and enforced by the Ministry of Home Affairs. And then the other one, with respect to poisons, is under the Pharmacy and Poisons Act 1979, as well as the Fumigation Controls Act 1945, which come under the Ministry of Health. So what we're looking to do is to provide for more comprehensive controls over things like Roundup, as well as bring all aspects of pesticide under control of one statute and one ministry so that we can modernize the existing controls as well as improve the regulations for importation of pesticides, using the pesticides, distribution of pesticides, disposing of pesticides, all of those things, because A, we all appreciate that there are environmental aspects of not disposing properly of pesticides. And then B, we also recognize, unfortunately, that there are some health ramifications insofar as perhaps certain cancers and the like. So we need to pull those pieces of legislation under one heading, under one ministry, and address it accordingly.
Gotcha. And so that include things like insecticide, herbicide, all the sides.
Yeah, all the sides.
All right. Thanks for that. That's actually Jasmine took care of my other questions. So I had quite a few questions for Minister Furbert, if you don't mind, sir, including some that have actually just come in to me.
I didn't know there was any questions left, Jasmine.
So I've got some queries here on the switch to e-cars. Folks are asking how much revenue will government be losing from this move because e-cars are duty-free? Will they have duty going forward, or if they do, how much will they have?
So interesting you asked that question because I had my discussion yesterday with the auto dealers. And I said there has to be a time in life when some duty will have to be paid.
Yeah.
The question is when and how much. As you're aware, when things starts out, it's more costly. So when we have more electronic vehicles being produced by manufacturers around the world, cost kind of, because of production, cost goes down as far as the purchasing of those products. So we're looking at doing something, and remember, we're going from now on to 2035.
Yeah.
I recognize, being an accountant, that we're encouraging people to get EVs, and we're losing revenue on one side. So as one goes down and one's going up, we're losing revenue. So we are looking at that. The question is, when do we start? And like I said, I had my first discussion with the auto dealers yesterday to not make it too overbearing for purchases as time goes on.
Got you. I guess what can you tell us in terms of the infrastructure that's going to be needed for this? We're going to have charging stations and what have you. I mean, it seems like a pretty profound change will be happening out on the roads. Just anything on that in terms of the infrastructure that we'll see going in place over the next 10 years?
Well, first of all, it starts at your house. So if you have an EV, it's probably more important to at least have some type of charging at your home. I had some guests at my house recently, and I didn't realize you can plug it in a regular 120. But so you have them. Then when it comes to apartments, there will probably be more allowed or needed. And do you drive at the Corporation of Hampton and there's a parking lot and you have some charges. So we will be having discussions with that. I'm having a discussion again on, I think, Thursday with the group who's working with us regarding electronic vehicles.
Gotcha. And you feel comfortable about 2035 as a realistic deadline for us getting there?
I think we can. There are countries around the world, Norway, I believe, I can't remember the other countries who have really pushed ahead. I mean, we can do things little at a time. We have now moved towards electric vehicle and buses. Should we move ahead with bicycles earlier? Some discussions I want to have with them. So it's not saying, well, wake up on January 1st, 2035, and it's going to happen. So I think we move towards that direction, and as the policies to be laid out may move a little at a time, but hopefully by 2035, which is whatever it is, 12 years from now, we'll be, or 13 years, we'll be in place.
You highlighted airlines. I have a few questions, starting with, you mentioned Bermuda Air. Who's behind that? What can you tell us about Bermuda Air?
I can't tell you who's behind Bermuda Air, but there is airlines that is having discussions with us. What they want to do is to, I think it's best to have a discussion with them. Once they come on public, I'm not sure I can reveal exactly their model, and I'll say that's it. I must have said something too.
Will there be, well, presumably there'll be more coming out about Bermuda Air fairly soon?
It's an idea that a group has. The question is, do they become more prominent and move ahead quickly, or do they look at the model and say, well, it does work, it doesn't work? And so discussions are taking place with the Airport Authority group and other to see whether it's viable.
Gotcha. You mentioned Boston. We're getting a lot on getting that Boston connection. How quickly do you expect us to have that service back again?
If I could make it happen, it would happen tomorrow, but it's not up to me to make that call. It's for us to talk to the schedulers within the airlines themselves, talk to those individuals who are making decisions, why these particular airlines pull out, and see whether we can find a compromise to move forward.
You mentioned Delta, and I believe you mentioned Delta. Is Delta in the running at all?
No, I just named them as part of the grouping that we should have discussions with.
They did used to service us before JetBlue, didn't they?
I think most people will miss the Boston flight. I'm one of them. I love the air. And like I said, if there's anything that any person since last week stopped me on the street and say, we've got to get a Boston flight. We've got to get a Boston flight. Well, I'm not a miracle worker, but I'll do my best to try to make things work.
Are you able to say if Delta would be in the running to do a Boston
I can't say
connection?
that at all.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
Understood. We had Skyport's commercial director, Ken Hassard, was apparently saying that United would be resuming direct service to Newark in March. Are you aware of, can you back that up? Can you confirm that? Do you know anything about that?
No, I cannot confirm that. As you're aware, Skyport has a responsibility also to be in the market trying to attract airlines here. But I have not had discussions with them as of yet.
Righto. There was talk of Skyport looking at new flights to smaller airports like Providence or Hartford. Are you for that? Have you had discussions about that with Skyport? Do you support that
If
policy?
it works, I'm for anything. If it's going to bring more tourists here, I'm for anything. The point is that they have a responsibility to go out in the market and try to attract airlines, hopefully will attract tourists to get on those planes and fly to Bermuda. If that works, then we're in good shape.
Got you. Is there any update on CarlJet? In fact, I think you mentioned
I
CarlJet.
think, yeah, Jasmine asked that.
Yes, yeah, okay. I had some questions here on Project Ride. We've got these changes coming up. Wanted to ask you, with this change, will there be an on-road component mandatory to do as part of the Project Ride program? Will it be part of the official test?
Yeah, we mentioned that just now, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Apologies if I'm going. Project Ride is only for kids in school. Will it be extended to the adult population? I mean, I remember I started driving a bike when I was about 35.
I started driving when I was 13. In the
I was
old
always
days-
scared of them.
In the old days, most people was driving around the yard, you know, and so most of us were just jumping on bikes and going. But now it's because of safety reasons. It's important for us to get our kids out there and get an idea of what's happening on the road. So whether it be for adults, Project Ride is not for an adult. It's mainly for younger people.
Got you. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, will the cost of the program for Project Ride change? And when are we expecting to have the new improved Project Ride system?
I don't see a change in prices. Mainly, most of these individuals who are actually doing the training are I understand they're teachers, or maybe some person just wanted to be able to help our young kids overall.
Got you. Minister, I've got one last one for you. And it was a biggie at the time when, back in May, Lawrence Scott announced that a cruise industry stakeholder was proposing investing $250 million for an infrastructure project in Bermuda. We haven't heard anything since then. Do you know what it is? Is it still going to happen? What can you tell us about that?
I can't tell you anything about it right now, other than there's a someone that has approached the ministry at the time. The question is, do we do a full analysis to see whether it's feasible, and which they will have to do, and also have to do with in regards to they have to dredge and everything else. So the question is about all sustainability and stuff like that. So I'm not at the liberty to tell you who that individual company is.
All right, thank you.
Got it. All right. Thank you, sir. Cheers.
You're welcome.
All right, I want to thank members of the media for coming, and that concludes. Thank you. Did you have one? No, okay. Minister Furbert, thank you very much. Minister Wilson, thank you very much. That concludes our press conference.
Thank you.